The Pacific night felt like it was holding its breath. Heavy clouds pressed low, smothering the horizon as if hiding a secret too dangerous for dawn. The sea looked calm, but beneath that calm stretched a silence that was not peace. It was warning. Out past the edge of sight, steel giants prowled the waters. American destroyers and South Korean warships cut black silhouettes against the dim horizon, their engines humming, radars sweeping in endless arcs. To sailors sipping coffee or cracking jokes in the galley, it was routine, just another patrol. But in Pyongyang, it was the moment they had been waiting for. Out past the edge of sight, steel giants prowled the waters. American destroyers and South Korean warships cut black silhouettes against the dim horizon, their engines humming, radars sweeping in endless arcs. To sailors sipping coffee or cracking jokes in the galley, it was routine, just another patrol. But in Pyongyang, it was the moment they had been waiting for. For 48 hours, a low-orbit satellite whispered encrypted bursts across the void. Coordinates sharpened, trajectories refined, targets confirmed. Inside bunkers carved into the cold granite near Wonsan, countdowns ticked toward ignition. 5 Hwasong-12 intermediate-range ballistic missiles, 6 KN-23 short-range weapons, batteries of sea-skimming cruise missiles, all hidden, all prepared, all waiting. Each warhead checked twice. Each system moved, concealed, then moved again. This wasn't just secrecy, it was obsession. And it had worked. The world was blind. 07:42 a.m. Aboard the USS John Finn. Coffee percolated. A petty officer laughed about baseball scores. Radar screens showed nothing but faint weather interference. The sea looked harmless. Then came the signal. A single encrypted command flickered across terminals in Pyongyang. The mountains answered first. Roars ripped through stone canisters as fireballs clawed into the sky. Contrails tore upward, carving scars against the clouds. To satellites above, it was unmistakable. North Korea had lit the fuse. On the John Finn, alarms screamed. Radar bloomed with death. Multiple contacts. Bearing 270, speed Mach 5, Mach 6. This is not a drill. Battle stations. Set condition 1. Klaxons blared. Boots hammered steel decks. Sailors sprinted to stations, sealing bulkheads, loading interceptors. From deep inside the destroyer's launch cells, SM-6 missiles roared skyward, spiraling into the blue. Above the East Sea, the first duel of fire had begun. The Pacific did not breathe. At dawn, the ocean looked like a vast sheet of molten steel, polished smooth and merciless. Warships cut across the surface, their silhouettes black against the dim horizon. Engines hummed beneath armored decks, radars whispered in circular arcs, and every antenna seemed to listen for secrets hidden beyond the clouds. For the sailors standing watch, it was another routine patrol. For the unseen architects of the north, it was the last moment of quiet before ignition. Dark clouds drifted low, heavy with an unnatural weight, as if the atmosphere itself braced for rupture. Somewhere beneath those shadows, signals pulsed invisibly. Encrypted coordinates flowed through satellites, refining angles, measuring distances, locking targets. In the mountains above Wonsan, inside bunkers of concrete and steel, timers glowed in crimson digits, their countdown unstoppable. And then, without ceremony, the first tremor split the silence. The signal. It came at 07:42 a.m. aboard the USS John Finn. Coffee steamed in the mess hall. A petty officer swapped jokes about last night's baseball scores. Consoles blinked with nothing more than faint weather interference. The East Sea looked calm, harmless, almost indifferent. But in Pyongyang's war room, a single encrypted command struck like a hammer across every terminal. Fire. The mountains erupted. Launch canisters roared. Flames clawed upward as ballistic trails carved through the clouds. To satellites circling in orbit, the sight was unmistakable. The first mass strike had been unleashed. On the John Finn, alarms shrieked. Red lights flashed like arteries of panic. Multiple inbound contacts, the radar officer screamed. Bearing 270, speed, Mach 5, Mach 6. The order sliced through the chaos. This is not a drill. Battle stations. Set condition 1. Klaxons wailed. Boots thundered against metal decks. Hatches slammed. Within seconds, the destroyer was alive with urgency. Every man and woman at their post. Every heartbeat syncing to the rhythm of war. From the launch tubes, SM-6 interceptors exploded into the sky, twisting upward, hunting for the killing arc streaking toward them. The Pacific's first duel had begun. The first collision. The Aegis system pulsed with raw calculation. Vectors plotted, probabilities updated in milliseconds. Two Hwasong-12 ballistic missiles tore high through the upper atmosphere. Their re-entry paths staggered deliberately, designed to choke the defense grid. Beneath them, KN-23 short-range missiles weaved erratic trajectories, diving and veering like predators. The John Finn answered in kind. SM-6 interceptors tracked, locked, and detonated with blossoms of fire. One Hwasong disintegrated, fragments scattering into the sea like shrapnel of falling stars. Another was vaporized mid-re-entry, its light so blinding that sailors shielded their eyes inside the Combat Information Center. But not all could be stopped. A KN-23, agile and merciless, slipped through. The close-in weapon system roared awake. Its Vulcan cannon spat a torrent of tungsten rounds, a metallic scream that split the air. The missile erupted less than a kilometer from the hull. Shockwaves rattling steel ribs, knocking sailors off their feet. Lights flickered, alarms wailed. Yet the John Finn still floated, still fought. And then came the second wave. Barely had the echoes of the first detonations faded when the horizon spat a new kind of predator. Low, fast, and nearly invisible until the last breath, sea-skimming cruise missiles tore across the waves like metallic sharks. Launched from concealed coastal batteries, they hugged the surface, their radar signature vanishing into the sea spray. On the John Finn, operators spotted them only seconds before impact. Too late for comfort. Sea skimmers inbound, multiple bearings. The destroyer's ESSM interceptors sprang from their vertical launch cells, streaking low and fast. Explosions erupted over the water, geysers of fire and salt rising in tandem. Some missiles died in mid-flight, but not all. One Kumong-3 slammed into the port side. The explosion ripped through armor plating with a metallic shriek. Bulkheads groaned as water surged into compartment 4. Alarms roared. Flooding in section 4. Fire on deck 2. Smoke poured through corridors. Damage control scrambled with hoses and portable extinguishers, their voices cracking through radios. Seal it off! Move! Move! Commander Ryan Coldwell stood on the bridge, gripping the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. His voice cut through the chaos, iron steady. Seal the compartment. Report on propulsion. Helm, maintain heading. We hold this line. The crew heard him, and they obeyed. For in those words lay their only chance at survival. Allied response miles away, the South Korean destroyer Sejong the Great picked up a far deadlier contact. A submarine-launched ballistic missile, the Pukuksong-3, fired from the shadows of the deep. Back in Yokosuka, the 7th Fleet Command Center drowned in reports. Dozens of red markers glowed across digital maps. Electronic interference clouded the airwaves. At least one more submarine lurked unseen. Officers shouted coordinates. Analysts tried to keep pace. And through it all, one voice cut through. This isn't a drill. This is an opening strike. Get Ford's Air Wing airborne, now. South of the chaos, the USS Gerald R. Ford thundered into motion. Its deck became a frenzy of steel and flame as F-35C fighters launched in sequence, engines screaming into the sky. EA-18G Growlers followed, their mission clear: blind the North's radars, choke their electronic eyes. Farther still, the heavy roar of B-1B Lancers rising from Guam rolled across the stratosphere. Each carried bays full of JASSM cruise missiles, the long arm of retaliation already on its way. The alliance was waking. But would it wake fast enough? The fire spreads. On the East Sea, the battle escalated into chaos incarnate. The John Finn, battered but unbroken, struck back with fury. LRASM anti-ship missiles ignited from her launchers, streaking toward the North Korean coast. Moments later, explosions lit the cliffs like a second sunrise. Hidden batteries crumbled into fireballs, shockwaves shaking the earth itself. F-35Bs from the USS America swept in low, their precision bombs cracking bunkers open like eggshells. Entire hillside complexes vanished beneath mushrooming clouds of smoke and dust. Growlers jammed enemy radars into blindness, leaving Pyongyang's defenses deaf to the storm bearing down upon them. But the North was not finished. 4 more Hwasong-12s leapt skyward from inland launchers. Artillery rockets flooded the air in salvos so dense they looked like falling stars. It wasn't just an attack. It was a political scream, a message written in fire across the Pacific. We will not be ignored. On the John Finn, sailors whispered prayers in the dark of the lower decks. Gunners on the surface scanned the horizon with eyes that refused to blink. Above, interceptors rose and collided in bursts of fire, the sky itself reduced to a battlefield. But one KN-23 slipped through again. Its impact struck the aft of the South Korean destroyer Munmu the Great. The explosion ripped through aviation fuel, birthing a black tower of smoke that clawed into the sky. The ship burned, her crew scrambling to contain the inferno. The formation staggered, but it did not fall. Commander Caldwell's voice boomed across comms, unshaken. "All ships, hold formation. Return fire. We do not break today." The silent hunters. Beneath the raging surface, where sunlight faded into the black silence of the deep, another war brewed. 2 North Korean submarines, Romeo-class relics, crept through the undersea canyons, their propellers whispering. Their mission was desperate yet clear. Slip past the American screen and put a torpedo into a carrier. But they were not alone in the abyss. The USS Missouri, a Virginia-class submarine, stalked the dark like a steel phantom. Sonar operators listened, headphones pressed tight, hearts racing. A faint rhythm, propeller screws too uneven to belong to an American vessel, echoed through the hydrophones. "Contact bearing 270, range estimated 15,000 yards. The captain's reply was ice cold. "Prepare weapons. Tube 1, load Mk-48 ADCAP. Set to active terminal homing." Moments later, the ocean itself roared. The torpedo surged from its tube, accelerating into the dark. The Romeo class never stood a chance. The impact was thunder muted by water, a sudden bloom of fire and steel that collapsed the submarine in on itself. The second Romeo tried to flee, diving deeper. But sonar painted its trail. Within minutes, it too was erased, consumed by an invisible predator lurking in silence. Above, the fleet could breathe again, if only for a heartbeat. By now, the battle had raged for hours. Smoke smeared the horizon. Fires dotted the sea where wreckage drifted, burning like funeral pyres. And still, the Alliance held the line. F-35s carved across the sky, intercepting wave after wave of ballistic and cruise missiles. Aegis destroyers spat interceptors until their launch cells ran dry. Each shot a thread holding back catastrophe. Damage control crews fought with water, foam, and sheer will, their uniforms blackened by smoke and oil. On the bridge of the John Finn, Commander Caldwell refused to leave his post. Reports came in, casualties mounting, compartments lost, engines strained. Yet his voice carried through the static with unwavering resolve. "This is not the day the Pacific breaks. Hold steady. Hold steady." His words rippled across ships, across cockpits, into the hearts of men and women who fought with everything they had. In Pyongyang, the leadership faced a terrible truth. Their surprise strike had drawn blood, but not victory. The American carrier still sailed. South Korean destroyers still fought. And retaliation was no longer a question. It was already unfolding. B-1B Lancers crossed the stratosphere, their payload splitting into dozens of autonomous missiles. Stealth bombers from Guam pierced the clouds, invisible to radar. The storm was coming home. Satellite relays captured the signatures of new launches, this time from American silos. Trident II D5s, not armed with nuclear warheads but with hypersonic glide vehicles, streaked toward hardened bunkers. Each carried a message more chilling than any words. "We can end this whenever we choose," and the world watched. In capitals across Asia, Europe, and the Americas, leaders stared at glowing screens and maps that pulsed with fire. Newscasters struggled to explain what was unfolding. Civilians fled coastal cities, the memory of past wars rising like ghosts. The Pacific had become a knife's edge, and the blade was drawing blood. Unfinished dawn. By nightfall, the battle quieted, if only by exhaustion. Both sides had fired thousands of munitions. Ships smoldered, aircraft limped back to bases with wings torn and fuselages punctured. The sea was littered with the twisted remains of metal and men alike. Yet no side had won. The alliance still stood, battered but defiant. North Korea, though bruised, still had rockets hidden in mountains, still had men willing to die for their orders. And so the world held its breath. Would Pyongyang double down? Would Washington unleash its full arsenal? Would Beijing or Moscow step in before the Pacific turned into an open wound too wide to heal? For now, silence fell across the East Sea. A silence more dangerous than the storm. Because everyone knew, the first strike was only the beginning.